So welcome to this video. Today I want to talk about how to cel shade your own characters and just my process on how I do it in my drawings. So let's get into it. So first of all, what is cel shading in the first place? I like to describe it as just the process of making a drawing seem three-dimensional by adding flat colors to it. You usually see cel shading in cartoons, anime, and it's pretty much the opposite of photorealism, where you have this extremely high amount of detail. That's pretty much the opposite, where in cel shading you have more simplified shapes, and like I said, you see them in cartoons and anime like that, and even in artwork like mine. And so in this case, I like to draw characters in a more anime and cartoonish style. So I use cel shading to create depth and three dimensionality to the characters that I draw. Alright, so I'm here in Clip Studio. I have this character that I drew. And actually, let me pull up the reference picture of this character. I already had a headshot, like a portrait of the character I drew. And I wanted to actually kind of design his outfit a little bit. So let me pull up that picture real quick. Okay, cool. So this is the character that I drew, and I really like this character design. I liked his just look of the character, and I was like, I want to expand upon this and actually draw a design for him. And so that's where I came up with this outfit. And in this video now, I'm going to show you how to cel shade your characters, like this illustration over here. I'm gonna show you how to cel shade by using this character over here to the side. So let's get into it. So first things first, how do you even cel shade a character, right? I would just say cel shading is just having a basic understanding of light and shadow. You don't need to make it too complicated, really. I like to simplify everything and just into basic shapes. And don't get me wrong, I'm still trying to learn it myself. But I think as long as you know the basics, you can shade your characters using cel shading efficiently and effectively, like I did here, I think. And I really like how this turned out. So I want to actually do this on this drawing here, and let's just get into it. What I'm gonna do before I start cel shading is I'm actually gonna put the flat colors in. I'm going to draw the lines for this character, because right now you can see it's a sketch. So I'm just gonna ink this character and put in the flat colors real quick, and then we can get into the cel shading. So let's do it. Alright, so I'm back. I went and added the flat colors, added the ink to the drawing, and now what I can do is start getting into the cel shading part. So let's do it. So the first thing you need when you cel shade is just to identify your main light source. For me, that's usually the sun, whether that's day or night. It could also be the moon. And second, you just want to kind of figure out where the light hits the character. The light can come from above, below, or behind or in front of the character, and right here I kind of identified that for you. Here I sketched out some different lighting situations that you can use cel shading in. Here's the front view. Usually when I do front view characters, I make the shadow pretty simple, just under the chin, under the eyelids, back of the head, hair, and just in the clothing where necessary. Here, this is coming from behind the character, so everything behind the character is lit while everything in front of the character is in shadow. And then here is the character with lighting from above. So there's more dramatic lighting underneath the chin, under the eyes and the lips. And then here's the character with lighting coming from below, where you'll have all the light coming from below the character, so all the shadow is above the character and on the top of the character. And like I said, with cell shading, you just want to make it as simple as possible, and just yeah, use simple shapes and design like that. So let's see, where do I want the light coming from for this character? Uh, I think from like above, but also, let's see. So I want the light for this character to be coming from above, like up here, and in front of the character. So what I'm gonna do is start adding in shadows. So I've decided where my light is coming from. Now what I'm gonna do is draw in the shadows where the light doesn't touch the character, and that's what really starts to make the drawing pop and make it 3D. So what I'm gonna do down here is go down here to the new layers. I'm gonna add a new layer above my line art layer. I like to add it above my line art layer. Then set it to multiply. You can use different blending modes, but I like multiply for my shadows. And one thing to keep in mind with drawing shadows is, depending on the background of the illustration or drawing, I imagine this background is just a kind of blue sky background, right? So I want the shadows to also be a blue tone or a blue hue. And so I'm just gonna grab a color like right there. I think that's probably good, and just start drawing in the shadows where I think it's necessary. Like that, yeah, I like that. Let me see. I think the color could be a different color, a different shade of blue, maybe a little bit lighter. Let's see. And that's one thing too about drawing in the shadows is you just kind of gotta mess with the colors. But I like this shadow right here. And basically, like I said, I want the shadows to be coming from, or the light to be coming from above and in front of the character. So I'm gonna just draw in shadows where I think the shadows will be located at. I'm not necessarily drawing in light, I'm more so drawing in the shadows just to accentuate the light that's coming from a certain direction, basically. So underneath the eyebrows, I'll zoom in a little bit. Under the eyebrows, under the lip, in the ear, and remember, I just want to keep it simple, so that's pretty much it for the face as well. I also like to put in the shadow above the upper, or below the upper eyelid, like that. I just like that. And then I'm gonna draw in some shadow like this behind the hair, or in the hair, I guess. And then what I can do is have get the paint bucket tool and have refer multiple on area and scaling to 1, and just fill that in like that. There we go. Add some shadow behind the character's hair. I don't really like that shape anymore. Now I'm looking at it, I'm just gonna do something like this and make it less dramatic, like that. I like that. Cool. And basically that's what I'm gonna do to the whole figure all the way down, like that. So yeah, like I said, wherever the light doesn't hit is where I draw in the shadows. And I like to use a multiply layer, but you can use even an overlay layer if you want. You just really got to experiment, especially since it's digital art. You can create new layers and create new, just redo things over and over again. But I'm so used to doing it this way that I know what I want, I know what I like, so that's what I'm doing right here. Just in all the areas of shadow here where I don't think the light is going to hit, and the folds of the hoodie down here. And that's a good tip too, like doing this here. You don't even have to just go in and fill in the shadow. You can save time by just drawing in this shape and drawing more shapes where you think there might be shadow, like this here. There's probably gonna be some shadow over here, something like this, on the hand, like that. And once you have like all these shapes in of areas you want shadow to be, basically you go to the paint bucket tool like I did earlier and just fill them in. Make sure you have refer multiple on down here. I have area scaling down to 1 so that if you don't have area scaling on, basically the pixels won't see that white line here, it doesn't fill it in all the way. So that's why you want area scaling on. I just set it to 1 so that it fills it in more, fills in more of those pixels. But I can still see some of that line. So I'm gonna do 2, and there we go. Now it's fully filled in with that color. And so that's basically what I'm gonna do throughout the entire character, and then I'll come back and show you the next step to this cell shading stuff. Alright, so I finished up these shadows, and now that I'm done with this part of the cell shading process, what I actually go and do is start adding rim light. And I usually use a soft layer to add rim light, and it doesn't really matter where it's at in the layers, whether it's above or below. I like to put that below the lines, my line layer. So I'm trying to find it. Yeah, I'll just do this layer, and I'll just set it to soft light, and so the bounce light, or the rim light, is a secondary light source that I like to add onto the character. It just basically adds more depth to the artwork, and so we have the main lighting, which is kind of this bluish tint, I suppose, of the background. And basically what I want to do is add the rim light, which is like the sun of the image. So I'll get like a yellow, and let me see, I'll get a yellow, and the rim light is usually the ambient background color. So whatever the ambient background color you have, later on when I add like color dodge and stuff like that, I'll add in like yellow tints and yellow gradients to it. So that's why I want the rim light to be a yellow, because I know in the light it's not just going to be blue, but it's also going to have that sunshine in it. So I'll just use this soft light tool to add like yellow around the edges of the character to make it even pop even more. And it's pretty subtle too. You might not really notice it at first glance, but I think it gives off more. It just gives more detail to the piece, and more. And I think it makes it look better, a little bit better than it already is. And so yeah, since it's not the main source of light, that's why I draw on the edges of the character like this, and in the hair sometimes, here and there. But the main thing is like the face and the clothes, really. And so I'll just go around the character, add this rim light. Basically the rim light is coming from the right side of him, so I'm just going to add the light on the surfaces of the clothes and all that, his face. And I'm not going to draw it inside the shadow because it's just going to look weird. So I'll just keep it like that. And you might not be able to notice it, but I think it just adds even more detail to it. And you could also use the overlay layer for the rim light as well. So let me try that out, see what that looks like. Yeah, the overlay layer makes it a little bit more brighter and easier to see. I actually might keep it that way too, but change the color a little bit. But that's pretty much it for the whole cell shading process. After that, I just go into detail, even more detail, adding like gradients, color dodge layers, stuff like that. And I even color the lines in sometimes to soften up the dark lines and make it more just soft and stuff like that. So that's pretty much it for this process. I'm gonna finish this up and show you the finished product of how this is a finished product. So let's do it. Okay, so real quick, one other thing I like to do with when I'm cell shading is, so I have the multiply layer that acts as my shadows. What I like to do is actually create another shadow layer, and that shadow layer is a multiply layer. Let's do this. Actually, yeah, create a new layer above the multiply layer. Clip it to the multiply layer. Put it on overlay. And basically, when you have it on a clipping layer, when you have it clipped to the layer below this, basically you can't draw outside of whatever is drawn on that multiply layer. And so what I'm going to do is create even darker shadows to even put in more detail to the piece. So yeah, I do overlay layer. The darker shadow is gonna be a blue and like darker down here, and I'll probably make it even like almost a purple just to get more saturation into it, or just a different color in there. And then I just start drawing in here the darker shadows. That's a little bit too dark. Lighten it up a little bit. I'll make it a little bit more blue, and just like that, just add even more darker shadows like this. Let me see. One of my favorite artists that actually has like this cel-shaded style that I like to use as reference sometimes is Edwin Huang. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he goes by Iron Pinky on Instagram. If you want to check him out, he's one of my favorite artists on Instagram, and I like to use his artwork for a reference for my own stuff. And I'm just trying to like pick apart other artists and trying to figure out how they do stuff as well. And so that's why when I say I add these darker shadows, I can see that in his work, so I try and do that in my own work as well. And so yeah, just adding darker shadows in the areas where there's already shadow with a little bit darker color on the overlay layer, so it saturates the color a little bit more. And that's pretty much it for the shadows and stuff. And after this, I just go into more detail. And but I do that for all around the piece, and I think that looks pretty good. I like how that looks, so I just keep it like that and just go and finish it up. But that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully that helped you out. I'm gonna show you the finished product of this drawing right now at the end of the video, just so you can see how it can turn out with a cel-shaded style. And hopefully I helped you out with this video, and that's pretty much it. So hopefully you learned something, and peace.